In a rapidly shifting society, now more than ever, it is essential to stay grounded. Balance is key, but harmony is better. Here, we provide the keys to tap into the divine masculine without sacrificing the divine feminine, because confusion not transmuted becomes confusion transferred.
This is Divine Masculine Activated, a weekly Tuesday evening tap-in brought to you by Mastermind Connect and curated by the good brothers JD Weatherspoon and Courtney Grange. We invite you to grab your activation method of choice, get comfortable, take a deep breath, and bring your whole self into this space.
Yes, y'all. To the beat, y'all.
Bad like we never ever left.
Because we might have left something behind and we had to come get it.
And it is not unwise to go back and fetch that which has been forgotten. So, how you doing, brother?
And another effort of purely divine Sankofa. I'm here another day.
That part.
Yeah, man.
What
But
we here to do today?
ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, welcome to another episode of Divine Masculine Activated. I am Courtney Grange. He is
Your favorite Geechee cousin, JDZ.
Al. And on today's episode, we are here to talk about wealth versus riches. Wealth
Awesome.
versus riches, right?
I like both. Done. That's the whole episode. Yes.
But today, when we're talking about wealth versus riches, we're really just going to do this from like something that needs to be called out that is extremely obvious, but often gets overlooked. And that is the fact that wealth is feminine and riches are masculine.
But why is that, Courtney?
Glad you asked that question, JD. And I'm sure that our audience is probably asking that question as well. Like, hold up. Or other parts of our audience are probably like, that's right. Yep, go ahead and say that. Whichever side of the fence you sit on, this conversation is. So, good brother JD, wealth versus riches from the masculine perspective, where we starting off?
With me asking you a question, because that's how we planned this episode to go. And so, with the first topic of what does having it all really mean, right? That's our first segue into this topic, because we often look at the concept of Ikigai, right? Mm-hmm. And so there's this matrix that includes the stuff that you like, the stuff that you're good at, the stuff that happens to be useful to the world at large, and the stuff that you can actually get paid for, right? And if you can nail all of those Venn diagrams smack dab in the middle, you get that whole Japanese principle of Ikigai, or fulfillment,
yes.
Right? And so on today's segment, I'm going to reference the past, of course, as we do. And I know in our previous episode about hashtag alt black, we briefly touched on the idea of having the American dream, right? Only to be left wondering, what's next? I've done all the things. I have the traffic. And what is having it all on Courtney Grange's terms specifically? And how does that influence the way that you approach your pursuit of wealth and riches?
Okay. I really should have read that question fully before we started this episode.
Well, I'm gonna come out the corner with the whoop-de-whoop. Like, don't even. Okay. There's no warm-up. You're coming off the bench, ready to go.
All right, let me think about this one a little bit, because
take your time.
Yeah, what does having it all mean to me? Mm-hmm. And how does that influence the way that I approach my pursuit of wealth and riches? I guess I got to first point out the fact that you said wealth and riches as opposed to wealth or riches, because I do want both. Right?
Option C, bro. Option C.
Completely option C. So I guess what I'll do first is kind of give context for me personally, like, why is wealth feminine and why are riches masculine? In a sense, because I look at wealth as being infinite. It does not end, right? For any person or group of people that we consider to be wealthy, it's almost as if And it's funny because I heard one of the Disney descendants who's like involved in the company say this.
Mhm.
He said, when you're wealthy, it's like you took your money and you put it in the room, it had sex and had a baby and made more money. Like that component of things, right? In the sense of it never really ends. And so that
We rich forever.
that for me is why wealth is feminine, because the feminine is infinite, right? It is the continuation of life as we know it from whatever point that it began from, infinitely until at some point, right? Nobody knows when that point is, but to us, it is infinite. The masculine is riches, is because for the most part, it's the things that I can go get, right? It takes a certain level of go get itness to become rich. Now, once you become rich, is usually when you can start to try to transform your riches into wealth. But one definitely comes before the other, right? Which is also an interesting point when you look at it from a masculine and feminine perspective. But
Chicken or the egg, bro.
that's not today's episode. We'll do that later.
Do that on your own time.
So
On
with
the
that,
next episode, we allocate for said conversation. Yeah.
that's it. But I guess I'll bring it back to what we always say, the masculine being the container, right?
Mhm.
That is the safe space, the trusted space, the safe that creates the opportunity for freedom or for anything to blossom. And so the masculine creates the container. Femininity is what is grown or blossomed out of that safe space, right? The combination of those two things. So it's not one or the other. It's both of these things together create the growth.
Yeah.
So for me, in that sense, my riches, right, are the things that I've really learned how to go after first, right? I think when I was younger, I thought that for me personally, I needed to be wealthy first. Like I wanted to have the family first before I built the business or the finances to be able to sustain the family.
Cart before the horse.
In a sense, because in my mind, it was like, well, I need to do this with a partner, or I want to do this with a partner. I think a component of that was that I saw both of my parents struggling separately. So for me, a point of elevation from that was like, well, we could struggle together and grow. Young ignorance.
I was about to say, like, let's all laugh together. I can hear people just, what? I hear the nigga, what?
Young ignorance.
Yo.
Now, I much more personally understand the value of what really allows me to live up to my word, what really allows me to be of good character, is how well I fortify my shit first. If I'm taking care of the shit that I need to take care of to keep my mental on tight, to keep this space running the way it does, this Wi-Fi that I'm paying for y'all to see me, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, like that comes first. And then my ability to master that in a way where now, all that's on autopilot, right? Because of the riches that I've been afforded to be able to make. Now I have the energetic space necessary to apply that same structure to something like a family. It's different for everybody, right? This is just my personal aspect of it and my lessons that I have learned, because when I did it this way, I didn't get results that I was looking for. When I did it this way, I didn't get results that I'm looking for. I'm doing it this way and I'm getting everything that I want. I have the riches that I'm looking for, and I also can see how the wealth comes. It just takes more patience now because I don't get to like go get it the way I thought. And so I think for me, that's the approach that I have at this point when it comes to wealth and riches, and like how I look at that from a very alt-Black perspective than, let's say, how I was raised, or anything that really comes up in my family. Like we talked about this before, but a lot of us in this alt-Black space are still the first of many things in our family, right? So like when you become the person that everyone in your family comes to talk about business, I mean, you gotta assume that you're doing something right, and and double down on those things that people see in you, because whether you saw it or not, it had an impact. So if you can touch the impact, right, that's now something that you can put in towards your own alchemy. You can get your ego out the way, which sometimes is the challenge when it comes to wealth and riches, right? Yeah. So now it's my turn. So, good brother JD, keeping in mind that wealth is feminine, you're hitting a stride that, because I know you couldn't have fathomed it looking this way 2 years ago. What is the principle you would say has been the most important to your current wealth?
Trust.
Yeah.
Trust.
I like
a lot of, when I look back at a lot of the moves that I made, right? A lot of the messes that were created were directly as a result of rushing shit. Like now and fast. And yes, like there is something to be said about youthful exuberance, right? And that understanding really the magnitude of how nature functions. And also, like, yes, being a millennial was part of it because, you know, we didn't necessarily grow up with Wi-Fi, but we saw the transition into it. And we understand, like, that accelerated process of how you can kind of get everything the way that you want it when you want it, so long as you can afford it. And so for me, taking a step back and looking at the riches piece first, historically, it was always, oh, okay, so the sooner I can make money, the sooner I can get what I want the way I want it. Well, I don't necessarily care about the money. I care everything about getting what I want, how I want it, when I want it.
Mm-hmm.
So whatever gets me to that, it's what's most important. Full stop. But at the core of that impatience was a lack of faith and trust in the process.
Yeah.
Like, I need this now. I don't know, you know, in case something happens. It's the in case. You don't even necessarily have a fixed what if, right? Like, there's no concrete answer there for the most part. It's like something theoretical, like hardship or poverty or some type of lack or, you know, a loss of control, right? You know, me and my youngest child syndrome of most of this is out of your hands, bro. You're kind of just subject to whatever's available. Like, the way that I adapted to that was I became fucking obsessed with having first and final say in any context. And so riches became a tool that I could use to address that because he who pays the piper decides the tune. I just want to call my own shots and not have to answer shit. And so growing into a space of not feeling as pressed because you realize, like, I can't sink. Right? Like, unless it's already set to work out for me for my highest good. I just need to continue to be fully committed to alignment, right? And then the rest is just walking the walk and continuing to show up. Because that's the trick, right? Like, we're already destined to win whatever that is. It's up for you to decide that, like, once you get it, are you aware enough to realize that it's here?
Yeah.
Because we play, and I definitely spent years chasing my own tail, like in pursuit of this fabled idea that was like standing next to me the whole time. It just was presented in a way that I wasn't really ready to embrace. So, doubling back to your original question and landing the plane, once I learned how to really trust in the understanding that anything that I thought I needed, I already had. It's already in here. What decisions am I making that are either bringing me closer to or further away from alignment with who that is? You know, be, then do, then have. I just put the cart before the horse. I was focused on the doing and the having part, and I skipped the beingness.
Yeah. And you can't stop that process of being.
I mean, you can try.
You can try.
You can try for 60 years.
Yeah.
And you can have 60 years worth of experience moving out of order.
You know
And
what I'm
you
saying?
will call that wisdom.
Yeah. You can have a whole life, you know. I think that one of those real key life lessons about what it means to transition into manhood is that you really start thinking about the next stages of life before you get there, right? Like as a man, I think about what it means to be a father and a husband. I didn't think about that shit that much when I was younger or when I was not a man, so to speak, right? And by thinking about it, I don't mean fantasizing. I mean planning for it, right? Be, do, have. So I must be of a certain caliber of self,
Mm-hmm.
have this family. You see what I'm saying? So if I want to do the act of creating the family so that I can actually have it. But the being part, it has to come first because I think in a lot of ways, like that's the difference between learned lessons and shit that we still got to learn. Because I can't really change my sense of being unless I have learned that lesson, right? And so, quick pull to pull the audience into the conversation. We want to hear about your lessons learned when it comes to wealth, not just financial, but in all the areas of your life where you have figured things out and now you are more abundant for it, like that wealth that you just can't put a price tag on type learning. We want to hear about those things from you. So drop them into the comments. You follow us on IG, drop a quick message to us on your stories, and just tell us the stories that you have of your hard lessons learned, tough pills to swallow when it comes to wealth creation, right? We would appreciate it.
We'll have some nuggets in there.
We want to see all the wisdoms because the more we share,
and the ignorances, and don't skip that part.
But I mean, that's the thing. Like most of the most profound wisdoms come out of the most ignorant situations. A lot of times, if you pay attention, like you know what to never do again if you've done some ignorant shit.
Right.
You know. So to that point, like this journey or this walking, because when you say be, do, have, it makes me think of walking, a journey all the time. And a lot of times, you know, we see these memes or different things that say like the way that I thought about wealth, and it's a straight line.
Mm-hmm.
The way that you actually get to wealth, and it's this like squiggly line or whatever it is. But what's funny is, and this is from a Yoruba perspective, right? And so those that are in the Yoruba tradition will understand the concept of what's called Ajay, right? Orisha Ajay. And how Ajay is the Orisha, the energy of wealth. It is fundamentally feminine, by the way, just to plug that. But Ajay as an energetic is seen as a circle, right? And this is a shout out to Baba Sekou. If you have never explored it, I'm going to leave a link for y'all in a little bit at the end of the episode so you can see how to get to this workshop that talks about wealth and prosperity from the perspective of Ajay, if you want more on it. But Ajay is said to be existing in a circle. So wealth is in a circle, not in a squiggly line and not in a straight line. It's a circle. So when we're walking, right, be, do, have, it's interesting to think about that concept because really, for me to find wealth, I have to walk in a circle. I got to go right back to myself. There is no goal down there or a point, you know, other than like back in me that's going to get me to the being part to then do and then to have, right, from that perspective. And so that Ajay piece of things for me is always, always, always in the back of my mind when I think about what I'm doing, because it reminds me of my character. Also, in the sense, in the stories that Baba Sekou or Chief Sekou often talks about when it's relevant to wealth, it's how wealth is always this energy that leaves your house. It never stays with you. You always have to go get it. And the proverbs of the Yoruba Oriki that talk about wealth in this way talk about when wealth decided to stay in certain homes and why wealth decided to stay in these certain homes as opposed to going from house to house and people just constantly chasing wealth around. And those principles for me have stuck since I first heard them in regards to like, well, it's pretty much the same stuff every single day that you can be comfortable enough to do every single day.
Oh, wealth itself is a process.
That's it. You just have to follow it every single day. And the perplexing part or the hard part a lot of times is people choose wealth for themselves. It doesn't feel good.
Well, and we'll get into that later, but like
Yeah.
fundamentally, that's more of a richest perspective than the wealth one, because wealth damn near automatically includes people who are not just you.
Which brings me to my question for you.
Mhm.
Plain and simple. Now that you understand wealth from a more rich and full perspective,
Yeah.
what riches do you want still just because you just want that shit?
Lowriders and tattoos. Specifically the 1969 Lincoln Continental.
You thought about this deeply.
Gotta have the pinstriping on the inside. Old school with some new components. Digital dash is fine, but I need to have some Bluetooth. Yeah. Off top.
Lowrider
Super
tattoos.
easy. Periodic access to boats and planes for logistical purposes, but that's not a just cause. Like, there's a specific goal attached to that.
That's right,
bro.
Lowrider tattoos.
Then, cultivation of my sugar cane so I could distill my own aged rum.
Yeah. All right. I dig it. I can dig that. That makes sense.
Next.
Tattoos. Yeah. I think for me, and this is being 100% transparent with it, sneakers.
Yeah.
I think that
Low hanging fruit.
but for me personally, just because there isn't an outfit that I've ever worn that I did not think would have been better with a pair of sneakers.
I feel it. And it's very evident in the way that you source outfits.
It's just how I'm built. The first time, and it literally goes back to my childhood, man. Like I remember the first time I saw Kadeem Hardison, right?
Mm-hmm.
Dwayne Wayne from A Different World show up at one of those events like the Oscars or whatever with a tuxedo and some J's on. And I was just like,
so that blew your whole head. It was like, what? You can do that?
You should have been doing this forever. And now it's way more culturally acceptable. Like you see the dudes on ESPN with sneakers on all the time with their suits now. Like that wasn't a thing 10 years ago.
No.
But for me, it's just that's a riches of mine. Like I enjoy that space of like, and not even being able to buy them. I'm talking rich from the perspective of like my Nike rep just sends me my shit.
Yeah, no, I'm not purchasing. No, I'm getting shoes.
You know what I'm saying? Like,
now, to be fair, we did say riches. That's well, but anyways,
which one?
This isn't it, or is that just me?
No. What you said? What was well?
Yeah. You said so. Like, just getting sent stuff, bro. That's wealth.
No, nigga, the Migos get sent shit.
Fair.
Migos got a Nike.
The more money you got, the more you get for free. Look, you're right. That's fair.
Yeah, like,
you get all the shit for free once you got money.
I don't know which Migos it was, but he got a Nike delivery with some new J's and a box with real butterflies.
That sounds like some Quavo activity.
Like, okay, Shannon Sharp. Shannon Sharp is on the list. He has a Nike rep. Shannon Sharp's not wealthy. He's rich. And he'll tell you that himself because he gambled away. He shitted away a lot of his riches initially. He had to make them back.
Hey, man, all in blacks and yet come back to get you.
I don't think that it translates to riches. Like, if you think of it, okay, let's think of Jay-Z, right? Because this is also a cultural thing. Like, I don't expect Elon Musk or freaking Jeff Bezos to ever understand what I'm talking about in terms of what this does for me personally. But Jay-Z, right?
Mm-hmm.
Jay-Z don't wear nothing but Pumas now. Why? Because he's got deals with Puma. So he wears,
Puma done stepped up the game, fool.
And they have.
When they got the old Adidas designers in it, like, like if you follow the trajectory, even before Nip did the deal with the team, like 7 years ago, like you notice, like Puma's doing something different and it's great.
Yo, when I saw,
matter of fact, boom, listen, these 5 panels,
talk to him.
It's a problem. Look.
When I saw dudes in the NBA rocking Pumas as their shoe of choice to play basketball, I was like, "Oh, we're in a different day now." Like,
they switched the whole game up, and it is amazing.
Anyway, I digress. This is a whole other conversation.
Yeah, no, but you touched the nerve. Yeah, I hear you.
So, good brother, I think where we going next? What's the next item on this IJ? So
I get to ask you some stuff. All right, so. We were born and raised with a certain understanding that we must pursue / hunt attain what it is that we desire largely by force, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, bringing in Isheshe, obviously, like, we'll get into what that is, but, like, how do you now view wealth as a principle?
You know what's funny?
Sorry, Isheshe, that's tradition.
Traditional Ifa, Yoruba, African spiritual science. We've talked about it a couple times. If you go back to last season and see our episode with Chantrell Lewis, shout out to Chantrell the King.
That's a whole workshop on that.
You will learn as much as you need to then go learn more, because that's what this is. But in this context, I'd actually say that Isheshe wasn't what got me to the understanding of like the principle of wealth. Okay. It was what kind of crystallized it and helped me understand the end goal. But like where it started for me around more to back to your point around the being part, was reading these Carlos Castaneda books around Don Juan. And if anybody has ever read any of these books, right? Like, like shout out to Honey Brown. You put me onto these way, way back in undergrad. I appreciate you forever for these.
That's so much ism. No,
it's probably
where we charge people for this. The game is to be sold. No, the game is to be sold.
I will say this: any man that watches this, or any people that watch this that want to learn more of what we mean by like what it looks like to be a divine masculine, go grab these books. It is the most spiritual form of masculinity I think I've ever read in a book. But Carlos Castaneda book specifically. God, I can't remember the name of the book. I'll find it. I'll put it up here for y'all. But in this book, he talks about this construct of the assemblage point, right? It is a point in our body that once activated gives us access to ourselves from all of the higher perspectives. And so you are truly fully tapped in from 3D, 4D, 5D when you are in touch with your assemblage point. And he gives different examples of this, but in the first one, he talks about how when he was with Don Juan, he hit him on the back. And then they had a conversation, and he was like, it was only a 5-minute conversation, but I remembered everything. Like everything from that conversation was with me. And then he hit me on the back again, and it was all gone. And that's how he explained to me the assemblage point. And from there, he explained to me how a sorcerer, any good sorcerer, understands how to move their assemblage point on their own towards activating their highest alchemy. When I read that shit, first of all, it was the first time that those certain concepts in that space were like really put to me. Like I had read The Alchemist, but it was like, yeah, I get it. Great story. But this was like, oh, this is practical. Wait, is this real? Like, hold on. And research started. And so for me, the being part of wealth started with this concept of like, in my own way, understanding my assemblage point, bringing it back to Isheshe. That was when I started to learn more about my Ori. Right. And even my name in the tradition, Orisami, which means inner spirit guide me. Most things for me are relevant to what's going on in here. Right. If my mental is straight, if I'm taking care of my headspace, I'm a supercharged missile. If I'm not taking care of my headspace, it becomes a much different conversation. And so
nuclear bomb, yes.
Yeah, man, ready to go off at any time. So my Ori from the Isheshe side of the house, my divine consciousness, which is a whole other masculine and feminine concept, because from a perspective of education, shout out again, Chief Sekou, for these knowledge points. Your Ori sits in two places. It sits in your top of your head and it sits in the pit of your stomach. So it's not one thing.
You talking about that head brain, gut brain conjunction?
Ooh, I'm talking about the masculine and feminine balance of like what goes on in your logic and in your spirit, all of those good things, right?
You mean you can think with your gut and you can feel with your head? That's crazy. Mm-hmm. Thanks, Omar. Shouts out to me at Crash Bell.
Crash Bell, Omar, what's going on, good brother? But yeah, man, all of these things, and you can see now the points of connectivity as it's gone over the past several years, right? Like this thing that started with this novel, right? Like Carlos Castaneda, that was like, is this true? Is this not true?
We really should be giving niggas this free.
Hey, man, look, we gonna do what we gonna do with this. We gonna figure out more, because there's still also, listen, the what is free. The how you got to pay for it. So we giving y'all a whole lot of what, but if you want to know how to do a lot of this stuff, you know where to go. We here all the time. Come holler at us.
Right.
Because this ain't something you just do overnight because you listen to us, right? Like it takes a lot more than that. But that for me is what I would say, how I now view wealth as a principle. It starts in my ORE. It starts right here. And then from there, it goes through, all the different components. It has to go through my gut to process. And it leads me to my most important principle, like what I've learned the most about wealth, which is patience for me. Like if I'm patient, everything that I want, I'm going to get. Just got to wait. Now, there's more to that, right? Like that's not the only component in the process. There's also like acceptance, grace, surrender, power, yada, yada, yada. But again, games to be sold, not told. So
Tabernacle, cathedral.
I wanted to switch gears a little bit in the conversation around wealth and riches, and talk about it or swing it back to like this season's theme of alt black. And in my opinion, this is probably the most open season time for Blackness to create wealth, right?
Contemporary history, like period.
It's never been like this before. And even
the trap is booming.
Shout out to Nip, like several albums ago before people was listening to him, where he talked about this. And he was like, yo, this digital thing, the internet and the way it's booming, like it's a gold rush.
Specifically, he is referring to mailbox money. Those who know. Those who didn't get on until after the victory lap are not talking to you. But
talk your shit, bro. Love the episode. Like people say, like we not new to this. We true to this. We really listen for the wealth of nuggets in everything. It can come anywhere. But that one right there specifically, when he talked about that, back when he was starting to get involved with tech and startups and investing, and being like,
with Vector 90, and he was like, listen, China's gonna crumble. Like this technology, like this is the new gold rush, bro. Giants are gonna crumble. New companies gonna come out of nowhere. It's gonna be dramatic, and the upheaval of the last 3 years is testament to the validity of that statement.
That's right, and to think that's coming from a wise hustler's mindset. We've also seen it from every other perspective of wisdom, like Warren Buffett will talk about this thing. We've seen everybody from Jay-Z to Steph Curry get involved in venture capital and investing in tech, as well as the tech sector itself. You all know what it is. I'm guaranteeing you got an Amazon box in the last week delivered to your house. But the reality of all of that is that now more than ever, this path, this circle to wealth is more accessible to Black people. And we are seeing Black people access riches, get into the space where they can build wealth now more than ever. And it's more alternative than it has ever been, right? And so like, JD, I wonder for you, when you look at, because I know you follow Earn Your Leisure and like a lot of the different folks who are getting into these
absolutely assets over liabilities.
Yeah, these new aspects of like how we're giving the knowledge we give into the game to people. I consider that to be alt Black in a sense, right?
Absolutely.
What's something that you've gained from that like has added to the cipher of your circle of wealth and how you view things?
I would say the platforms by which I access it, because now the same, like thinking of how the stigma of, okay, you're on social media all day. Well, it reminds me of what was that? I forget. There was this movie that came out like late 90s, early 2000s, and it was like maybe it was Bubble Boy, and he never went outside, but everything he learned about like mankind came through media. It was well curated, right? And that's the same approach I take. Like everything's a tool, and so if I can tailor my entire like IG sphere not only to base entertainment and folly, but to education, well, now like whenever I want to, I could just get like a quick 45 to 90 second blurb, like a quick hit of some like useful information.
Don't forget tailoring your Instagram feed to lowriders.
Don't get me started. Do not give me some, bro. There's like a lowrider head in every single major city that I follow, and it's like, bro, y'all doing a meetup? Be there for the next 3 days.
Anytime I pull up, I'm finna pull up. I'm ready.
You don't even have to invite me. I just need to know that y'all gonna be there. I'll invite myself.
Yeah,
You said that's a 59. Okay, cool. But anyway, yeah, back to your question. I would say using that as a supplement to my own diet of routine, like just knowledge gathering, right? And then it gives like really cool applications, which I like to see because you get to see the popularity of just financial literacy in a way that doesn't involve a pyramid scheme, which anyone in our age group can relate to in a major way.
And if you can, you ain't learned the lessons yet.
Yo, you had no friends. No one liked you enough to try to shove you into a pyramid.
Get you into some shit.
Right. Anyway. But I know, like, it adds to the consistent, like, intentional practice of mine to not be so damn judgy. Because I know a lot of my activism is rooted in, like, why y'all hard-headed? Just fucking read some shit. Why do you hate reading? God. Why do you hate reading? So it's like, all right, you gotta give people stuff. Fucking book. Right, buy some land. Your body needs water, so drink that shit. I don't understand.
The hell is it so hard for you to people to do what you're supposed to do?
Right. And so now it's just like, all right, cool. This is now these people care enough to like give you some useful shit on the platform that you get your ignorant shit from, and I think that's great. Right. And at a certain level, I do my best to take notes, but I also acknowledge that I'm never going to care enough to like do what they do in that way, and that's why I'm so happy that they exist.
Yes. Also, yes, the balance of power, so to speak, is very much at play in these social spheres, or the social or the metaverse, or whatever verse we in this week. And I do very much love how much balance is available now. You know what I'm saying? Like, I remember being an 80s baby, but a 90s kid. Like, how intense it was to understand the meaning behind things. Like, you didn't have
but you had to go read some shit.
You had to go read some shit. Like,
you gotta decimal system, my guy. Like, you gotta go dig through.
Everybody in school was talking about the Ouija curse. You had to go get Bones' album, E1999 Eternal, get the mother freaking package insert, read the joint in the mirror backwards, like, just to know what was being said so you could be involved in the conversation. And let's not get into like the cultural relativity of things like Wu-Tang and how big that was to the Upper East Coast in terms of just like how we spoke to one another. If you weren't listening to the music,
you didn't know the mathematics of the day God.
No, you would have no idea what I was talking about.
What? No.
And not
like,
even,
there were steps that you had to go to. And if you did not have the internal like proactiveness to go and seek and find,
that's right,
and then exchange and cross rep, that shit was like LexisNexis before LexisNexis. We had peer review conversations.
And then you take like how that transitioned into mixtape culture. And how like you heard about a mixtape, but you didn't actually have the mixtape, right? You had to know where to go to get certain types of music.
It was steps.
And even before that, right, the generation before us that was like, okay, if you was in Compton, like, how would you get access to what was happening in the Bronx, in Brooklyn? There was
so automatically now, so you tapped into the black market because the trade of goods and services. Like, that's how most of our original MCs started. Like, down back to like Pete Rock, Grandmaster Flash, and all them. Like, they don't. That's how you know they was really outside doing stuff, because they never talked about the stuff they did outside.
Because they was really outside. Like,
they could get caught with the RICO. Yeah.
They don't talk about, okay, when you used to go to the parties back then, like, and the security for the party
was the
gang the DJ came from.
And they were the ones, and that was like Africa Bambaataa and the Zulu Nation. Like, no, really, like, you couldn't get in.
Now, fast forward to today, none of that is necessary.
No.
You don't even need a crew. You don't need anything other than these in one of these devices that are sitting in front of us, and still niggas don't read.
Right. And that's where you got into like my old dude, like Uncle Ruckus.
Yep.
Don't trust them niggas over there.
Listen, man, if you are a Boondocks fan and there isn't a component of Uncle Ruckus that you can actually relate to in some way, like you're one of the people that I watch because you ain't balanced. Like, come on, man. Like,
yeah, no, absolutely.
Yeah. So
all the racial epithets come to mind. Like, see, this is why we in this situation.
Yo,
so upset.
Well, before we get too off track with this one,
right? I just had to get that off my chest. Thank you.
So this wealth versus riches thing that we've been talking about.
Right.
Back to what you were saying, JD, around like the alt blackness of it and how today you can literally curate your social feeds to get access to like Ivy style drips of the things that really do make sense for where you want to go financially, right? You don't have to subscribe to all of the different things and like what very quickly can become noise. You can channel all that out. You can literally filter it out and just listen for what you want to listen to.
Yep. And
that doesn't increase the trajectory of Black millionaires and billionaires over the next 20 years.
Ain't nothing gonna do it.
Ain't nothing gonna do it.
It's all your fault.
There's nothing else we could get at this point. Like all other injustices and troubles against humanity and like oppressions against Blackness withstanding, because like we're not here to save the world. And I mean we in terms of this conversation right now. Like that's not what we're here to talk about.
Been there, done that, tried it, got the t-shirt, not worth it.
But in terms of access, like we have both seen, heard, and been a part of enough lived experience to be able to let us know that if you are not utilizing your access to technology at any level, like you will soon find yourself by yourself and likely not really alive at some point because you won't be able to survive without this shit. It's crazy how much it's indoctrinated our society, but like there are numerous groups of people that made it through the pandemic simply because they had an internet connection. Whether you want to talk about the delivery of your groceries, the access to mental health where you had to be on the screen, pick. But there's something that technology helps you get through in the pandemic. And like that wasn't planned. That's not something that we can say was there for a resource to support like Black people specifically. But please believe we took advantage of that shit like we always do. Now more than ever is my point. That's all I'm saying. That's my story and I'm sticking to it. Now more than ever, we have more access to wealth than we have ever had before because of
human history.
And it ain't gonna get no better than this. We are going to get several more bubbles.
And then it's straight decline, bro. Dark
start dropping off.
Dark Ages, Meiji era, fool. Like I hope you buy bullets while they're cheap.
Listen, anytime in any room I'm in, like I love to bring up the conversation of social media consolidating itself. Around Black people, white people, rich people, tech people, and just see how people respond to it. Like, I wonder if y'all see this shit. Like, you really think all of these social media platforms are going to continue to survive the way that JP Morgan and Chase or fucking Johnson and Johnson or any other company has survived? Like, come on, dog.
Big fucks little, mate. Like, it's not.
It ain't gonna be here for
more computational ability than like the first batch of space shuttles. This
in the speed of a processor that size, right? And there's still leaps and bounds to go. Like we're not even going to get into conversations around things like 5G because yes, there's a ton of issues with it, and whatever road you take with your stance on 5G,
right,
it's going to change the world again.
We're not talking about vaccines, by the way.
Oh dear God!
That's not what we're talking about.
The fact that we even have to say that. But enough about this because we could go on and on about these topics, specifically around wealth and riches, because back to the conversation around masculine and feminine, like we're very much invested in trying to understand how to keep this shit balanced. Don't be too much of one thing or another, right? To the great philosopher and human being, Bruce Lee, like there's the concept of naturalness and unnaturalness, and then all of the equations that include those two things. So like naturalness, natural unnaturalness, and so on and so forth. If you need to learn more about that, this ain't the episode. We'll get into it another time. I don't want to be too gracious with the gifts today.
There we go. There we go. I love that. That's it. We can cap that. So, our ask to you, devoted listener, revisit the assignment from episode 1, which is inviting people to hit up our IG, do it yourself, and then we can collectively revisit this concept of #AllBlack, right? Because hopefully we've given enough nuggets to chew on so that maybe you might have new ideas and by extension examples of what all black is.
Yep.
And we want to hear and see it because we value your input. So with that being said, we got to close this thing up.
All right, let's get to it. Let's recap these resources that we have given to the good people. The good peeper. The peeper. First and foremost, JD, you want to grab these?
Okay, resource. Oh, yeah. Okay, cool. Resources. So we have 256 Healing Arts, which is our lovely and, beloved Eli, which we call home and appreciate so gratefully. We have a specific workshop on wealth and prosperity that we're going to bless y'all with. That link's going to be made available. We have, referencing once again the works of the genius Carlos Castaneda, specifically his journeys with Don Juan.
Gotta grab that.
And then, of course, the good folks over at Earn Your Leisure. At some point, we're gonna rope y'all into a conversation. We should probably hurry up because y'all pretty major now, so I don't know what that much is gonna look like. But we're gonna put that out to the universe.
I mean, hey, do. Closing us out as always with our gratitude, attitude, and latitude. Today, we are going to take this gratitude piece and split it up between the two of us. What we call patience and say it for me. Occam's razor. First and foremost, like I talked about earlier, patience for me has been the most important component to understanding my cycle of IJ, my cycle of wealth. If I wait and I am patient, everything that I look for, everything that I want, I'm going to have it.
I guess that makes sense, whatever. But yeah, so Occam's razor, it is the basis that similar hypotheses are typically better than complex ones. Long and short, keep it simple.
That's right. When we say,
wait on it.
I'm talking about attitude for today. Seek better to understand your assemblage point. It's probably
what that mean?
Go read one of those Carlos Castaneda books. I would suggest starting with The Power of Silence. But your assemblage point, in a sense, is your ori. It's your divine consciousness. It is the part of you that chose you, right? The part of you that we call a soul that chose this person, this life stream, all of this stuff that is your life. It chose you, and it chose you for a reason. And so if you are seeking your assemblage point, you are seeking to know who you are and know what you're supposed to do here.
Which is much easier to do with a decalcified pineal gland, but that's another conversation for another day.
Or you can go back to the conversation we had last season with the Ancestor Project, because we talked about a lot of plant medicine. We're just gonna keep hitting y'all with these motherfuckers.
That's what. Listen, we put together a portfolio, dog. We got references. We got catalog. We can go on to it.
Oh man! Last but not least, brother, you got our latitude for today.
In continuation of Occam's razor. Simplicity, right? A one-step process is just an efficient process, with the caveat that it does not cut corners. That's what makes it so special. It's very hard to do things in one step without cutting corners.
That's right. Straight line business is challenging when you're trying to build a circle.
That part. And with that being said, we will catch you on the next transmission. Same bad time, same bad channel. Stay safe. Be safe and stay dangerous. Peace.